I believe that we'll see a change in our democratic structures, as we currently see today with the wave of refugees. The Austrians and Germans are particularly impacted by this. We should be able to find new ways to deal with this. The refugees are just like us. We're all refugees. We're all migrants.
This species, with erect posture, bipedal locomotion and manual dexterity, has in the last few thousand years begun to spread ever more rapidly across the Earth. Its favorite habitats are flat plains near water, where it can establish its colonies, which bear a remarkable resemblance to giant anthills. These centers of concentration act like a magnet to ever more and more individuals of the species. These giant nest-like centers, called cities, seem to have a stimulating effect on social behavior.
One of the most important sides of all what technology enables today is really that it enables more connections between people. And that means really going back to what cities have always been about. You know, cities didn't exist once upon a time. Cities came into existence around 10,000 years ago, and really in order to bring us together and to allow us to exchange ideas and do things together. And we've lost a little bit of that in the 20th century. For instance, in managing the transformation of the city, I believe that today's technology, network technology, can allow citizens again to come together and help decide and build our cities.
Couples and families are trying continuously to organize themselves. In order to administer the whole nest, the colony nominates leaders.
We should think about creating infrastructure, giving people the right to land, even if it's temporary or tenure, and then allowing people to develop, because they will develop the best house for themselves in a way they want to do. Similarly, infrastructure. Usually the government is very fond of building big highways, right? Because some contractor makes a lot of money and they look very nice. You take a photograph, but that's not what people need. Particularly in developing countries, most people are pedestrians, right? Or they are riding a bicycle. So infrastructure should be for them. So if you think about a pyramid, they are at the top. So most money should be spent for pedestrians and bicyclists, and the least for the cars. Like in Delhi, it's maybe 6%. In Mumbai, maybe it's 5% of the people who have cars. But all the infrastructure is being built for them.
However, these organizers, flanked by a self-nominated ruling elite consisting of officials entrusted with the task of communicating, do not always have the welfare of the giant nests and their inhabitants in mind.
So what we are seeing and hearing in the installation, everything of it is completely generated through the data which is captured. So we can see the emotional landscape and geography of the city. We can see how people form relations. We can see how people interact with each other. We can see what people discuss and how the various topics are discussed among one another. Obviously, these things are really interesting from scientific point of view, from sociological point of view, but they are also really critical because all this data that is being captured, it's our data, and very few people, ranging from operators to the NSA and who knows who else, can learn many things about us.
Because of lack of sufficient hunting and land to grow crops in these capacious settlements, some of the inhabitants are unable to find adequate nourishment. So the provision of foodstuffs is accomplished by a form of bartering system. Abstract credit documents are used as the most common form of currency. To obtain these credits, however, the bartering goods of time, creativity, and strength are necessary. However, time and strength are becoming less and less important.
One of the greatest challenges of the future will be the situation man versus machines. The robots will take over. The scientist Leek Postron has predicted that by 2075, which is no longer so far away, that 90% of the work of humans will be able to be taken over by machines and by robots.
But these artificial inhabitants increasingly seem to be causing trouble within the colony.
However, it's so important that we, in this time, should be engaging in the issues of what the robots will look like, how they'll interact with humans, and what it's like to communicate with them, so that we can feel comfortable with these robots. Because after years of research, we've discovered that we tend to feel uncomfortable with robots that look like humans.
Lacking feather or fur, the well-being of the colony is dependent upon purchasing power. These furless, naked creatures, however, can only survive by exchanging goods.
So we met the local crafter in the village, and then some tofu makers, and then after that, in the next level, we want to make a social system of soya culture. It's not only about finding the new material, but also how to develop it, and how
people can use it and can get the value, the economic value from this new material, and
especially for women, because they're all housewives and farmers, and
they
most
didn't
of them
get
just living with kids. And I think they need more self-expression, self-actualizations about what does they make and how it could be made, and about the knowledge and how they could develop it and push it to the the material to the limit, not only as food.
And the good thing, they doesn't have to go out the home. Out the house, he just can do it at home.
Because we started. We even started not in a lab, fancy lab, but we started in a kitchen, so the other women can do it in their own kitchen.
The bartering system appears to be the only thing that saves the colony from extinction. Nevertheless, more and more of the species are being excluded from this bargaining system and are declared non-barterers. For these subgroups, the acquisition of food and feather as well as shelter is almost impossible. They are also denied nocturnal vision by the use of artificial light.
I live in Manila. I work in Manila as well, for the Asian Development Bank, and for us it's very important. We distribute $20 billion per year, and we have to understand completely how we distribute those $20 billion for projects, for infrastructure projects in Asia that the people really need. Not the higher earners, but the really poor people, those living on $1.4 or $2 a day. And then you realize that's 40% of the people in the Philippines that are living in those conditions. 40 million people who don't have access to a reasonable level of living infrastructure.
Es ist so, dass natürlich die Straßen.
It is true. Street lighting in Manila is rather diverse. It's also a fact that in some cases, the people themselves install or even repair the lamps when they're broken, or they dismantle them to reutilize the parts for themselves. This practice interests us.
Diese Praktiken haben uns interessiert.
The project, in principle, is called Impro Structure because it represents a beautiful point of intersection between improvisation and structure. You just can't imagine it. Someone goes there and puts some things together. It's a decision of the community, a decision of neighborliness, but done in a kind of formalized way. There are people there called barangay captains. There are around 1,000 to 1,400 people, some of whom are chosen to make decisions over a budget. And they have a little bit for street lighting, which they can give out. They bring their own bulbs, install them, and they illuminate certain things. But things that we as a bank, being so top-down, don't see as the most important. But for them, it's incredibly important there to provide light for a Maria Grotto.
The lack of access of whole colonies to exchangeable goods, not just in individual areas but over the whole planet, leads to increasing unrest, and so there are individuals trying to work out solutions.
You know, money is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because we are trying to measure everything by money. This is our mistake, right? Are you trying to measure people's participation in a public event with money? That's not good, right? So we have developed a new currency. We call it social capital credits, or SOCs. SOCCS, SOCs. And we say that we should challenge the stock market. So we have a SOC market, right, for social capital. Then what we do is, let's say in a poor community, there's not enough infrastructure. So we know how to make micro infrastructure for sewage, for water supply, but who can do it? So we tell people, if you come and build this for your community, you can earn SOCs. SOCs go into your digital wallet. They are collecting like carbon credits or airline points, and you can spend them to pay your children's school fees, or to get telephone talk time, or get health insurance, health care. So using this method, we are trying to clean one whole river in a city in South India. It's called Madurai, and the river is sacred, but it is totally polluted. So we are trying to encourage people that instead of dumping in the river, you become custodian of the river. You earn SOCs.
Another interesting phenomenon is that some individuals randomly come into contact with each other inside very large buildings. By way of these apparently accidental contacts, the creatures are looking for creative solutions, and sometimes they find them.
So for this kind of festival, it takes normally at least a week, I'd say, until everything's weighed up and balanced out, and until you can actually find different approaches and connections during these symposiums. But sometimes it can be that in 3 days, ideas, ways of working and collaborations emerge where you say, let's do that right now. That's really cool. It works so well. I've just had that experience like that myself with Urban Design Lab, where I make a project in South America. It's a social business project. And I make a project in Nepal, and it all works perfectly together.
It is astonishing how rapidly this species spreads out and expands. As if it were not enough to try and struggle against the shortcomings of our own system, it also seems that the planet is time and again defending itself against its inhabitants.
The point is that this is why we want to build a village again, not just for the sake of building it, but rather to build something that's sustainable and creates value. For example, there's one approach which says in the dry season you can't grow anything, and irrigation systems can create additional value, and that will simply generate additional income. It's an affiliation of 3 organizations. ARS Electronica Solutions covers the media, Engineers Without Borders handles the technical side, and Kremin Lab should deliver the business strategies.
The species seems to have more than enough problems. Perhaps this is why smaller groups of individuals gather together in designated confined areas to demonstrate their fascination with moving pictures.
In 1987, we gave our first Golden Nika Award for an animation film to John Lasseter for Luxa Jr. That's the character that we still see in the trailers for Pixar films. You have to bear in mind that the animation group was 7 or 8 people. They worked for more than half a year on those 2 minutes, and it cost something like around 140,000 euros in today's money. Our current winner in the youth category, U19, is a schoolboy. He made a longer than 5-minute film completely by himself. He drew everything himself. He filmed everything. He did everything himself. And he said it took him 2 months to make, but with breaks.
Checking out my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make an award-winning music video. What I'm about to teach you is some basic 3D modeling. It's really easy. So, let's get started.
In the beginning, there was literally nothing. And then there wasn't. Nothing. There was stuff.
What we've been seeing in these last years, and which I find very exciting, is what I describe as expanded animation, which on one side is spatial design in the broadest sense, but works as well on big facades of buildings and virtually brings the building to life. There's some incredible work being done out there, and also a growth in the field of interactive animation. Our current winner of the Nika Animation Award is a woman. You start the film by dialing a special number on your phone. The idea is like a traditional portrait painting. At first glance, the image appears to be really like a painting, and then when you call the number, the portrait starts to come to life. I think that the expanded animation, which is really getting away from the idea of the screen and the contribution of interactive animation, I think that these two things are a very exciting new direction.
Who's that? Who's that?
Phone.
Not me. I'm right here. That's right.
Yes, we're right here. What am I doing here?
A further unique characteristic of these creatures is their imperative of expression and self-expression.
completely the opposite of interactive art, where everything is sort of ephemeral, everything disappears. It's like process-based, like situationistic. And then here it's the opposite. It's like keeping a trace, make it more permanent.
Even though the average height of the colony dwellers, around 1 meter 70 centimeters, hardly makes them among the largest species on the planet, they recognize no boundary or upper limit for their aspirations. In pictures, they represent themselves and their world. The size of the images range from minute mobile screens to immense walls.
It isn't just a case of the technical developments that are behind this. The point is to be able to break through this experiential horizon and to make magic with the world of pictures. For example, from inside the human body. Universe Human is a very basic application that we're running here, and we want to make it responsive and to make visible how the future of anatomy will look and what the future of medicine can look like. So we work together with Fraunhofer Institute, we work together with Princeton, with Siemens Healthcare, and they put at our disposal the most cutting-edge data sets for medical imaging. Here, we can show the very best that is currently available in visualization. What's more, we don't just concern ourselves with medical issues. We have, and this is what makes me especially happy, also socio-politically relevant issues in deep space. And the refugee project definitely belongs to this.
Und dazu gehört mit Sicherheit auch das Refugee-Projekt in Deep Space.
An interesting subgroup of the species appear to be moving in a synchronized way, and their plumage is acquired without the use of bartering, as well as being in the same coloring, so they are easily recognizable. In the absence of any natural enemies, these so-called armies seem to be put in place to prevent the overpopulation of the colony. As a consequence, many are forced to leave their habitat and to seek shelter and protection elsewhere.
We create pictures with people. We don't use people or depict people in a situation. Rather, we want to create something together that comes into being in a kind of workshop with the children. What do we do? Why do we do it here? We want to use these pictures as a positive sign, to show that a refugee camp is not necessarily negative. It can also be seen in a positive light. If you can see it as a settlement and not as a short-term reception camp with inhuman living conditions. We all want to be ourselves. We all want to have our own identity. We all want to be human in the way we can be individuals and develop differently. We don't want to feel like a mass-produced product. The time between when an urban area is on its way to becoming a city and when it actually achieves city status is a very short one. In this short time, what's going to happen to the children? A big factor is simply to give the children the possibility to be allowed some time outside of their strict daily routine and to have the possibility to give them a different way to contribute. Put simply, to pay attention to them in a completely different way and also to play with them.
Also einfach versuchen, mit denen zu spielen.
The unintentional migration of millions of the species and their future affects the whole population.
It's now such a pervasive and current issue that right here today, and in these hours, a couple of 100 meters from us, refugees are traveling past the railway station. Perhaps they'll stop in Linz to make a break in their journey and will be cared for here. Of course, right now we weren't aware of this. I think I speak not only for us, but also for other artists, that we hope that this year's ARS Electronica Festival will examine these highly contentious political questions. Now we come to the machine itself, the mail slide, which was basically a distribution machine for the mail. Here, it relates to the stream of refugees who have to be distributed today. We tried to use it as an instrument for making the process of distribution visible and tangible in what we call the diaspora machine.
These upright two-legged creatures occur also in other forms on their connecting paths, as entities on 1, 2, 3 or 4 wheels. Up to now, the individuals have been steering themselves, but it seems that a new way of moving is coming up. With nothing else to do, the vehicles take over the job of driving.
In my ideal world, we would have lots of self-driving cars in a great big city with lots of people who interact with the cars, so that we could get an insight into what really works and what doesn't, regarding communication and interaction. We can't do that in the current situation, and because of that, at the moment, we're trying with various robots, with small robots, floor robots. We're trying to imitate and to simulate this interaction so that we can get an understanding of what can be possible in the future, what the intuitive experience can be like for humans, as well as certain patterns of interaction and communication that must be learnable.
But they don't just move around on the ground. They also appear to be active in the air. Being able to travel in every direction, though, appears to be endangering their own habitat.
The tea which we're making here, it will be made up of everything that comes from the air, rain, particles. If we were now in the forest, then there would be a couple of leaves or pine needles. And then here, on the teacup, we have a sensor station. And with this, we collect large amounts of data from the surrounding area, and through this tiny microcloud above the tea. And with the processing and the analysis of this huge amount of data, the computer heats up so much that with this heat, we can boil the tea water again. I've already once made a cloud rain machine. I spoke with a woman who was a cloud research expert, and she explained to me that she'd worked in the Antarctic, and she went outside with a hot cup of tea, and it didn't produce any steam. This is because in the Antarctic, the air's so clean that there's not enough aerosol in the air, and that this is the basis of the drop formation as well as the basis of cloud formation. So there's no steam coming from the tea. I always have this in my mind, and I have even begun to become interested in microclouds over the tea.
Only 30% of the goods bartered by these creatures are actually put to use. The rest is merely packaging and decoration. Almost every kind of produce is made under environmentally damaging circumstances. Virtually all of the creatures move through or migrate to other colonies. Every one of these so-called cities grows in an uncontrolled manner without any provision of space for plants and flowers.
I think Gilberto's work is very interesting for a number of reasons. First, he comes from a very fine arts background. So everything he learned about technology, science, biology, his environment, is purely from his curiosity. So the art and science that he pursues is just from his own curiosity and relationship to his environment. Second, he's from Mexico, where the pollution problem is just awful.
Take Beijing as a city, which is pretty extreme in the urban conflicts and urban issues because of its sheer scale of population. And we call it double center. It's a center for the central government and as a national capital, and as well as it has its own municipality. And when these two centers doubles at the same spatial point, then it creates more complexity in terms of to manage. And also because of its per capita limitation of natural resources, it creates a further challenge or issues to the ecology. So in Beijing, I think that it's in a way that it's very fun to play with, although the living experience is not perfect. It's not most of the time, some of the time painful or unhappy, but overall it gives you a kind of motivation. I don't think that the ideal living condition will be the human being always living in a 24-hour perfect situation. That then you will still not be happy or unsatisfied. There must be some motivation in your life that drive the individual citizen.
We have discovered trees, dancing ones. Another peculiarity we've discovered amongst them is a compulsion to put a series of sounds together, combined with a large audience in attendance. This so-called music is another form of expression quite unique to the species. Next to curiosity, creativity appears to be their dominant characteristic.
I don't think that there is a scientific brain and an artistic brain. We're all humans, and we use the same structures, the same wonderful structures, in slightly different ways. And there is something that is common to the way that our brain works, or the way that our curiosity is excited, the way that we are looking for questions and for answers. Curiosity is at the basis of both. Inspiration is a tool that we use in our attempt to find an answer. And wonder is something that we share when we feel that we have accomplished something in this path toward the answer to our questions.
While searching for the origin of this species, all forms of creativity must be used. From developing the largest machines to choosing artistic approaches. The species has a strong desire to know where it comes from.
If you can imagine, it's like a giant tunnel in which protons are traveling at the speed of light, or almost at the speed of light. They're racing towards each other, and then at 4 points collide with each other. That is, packets, billions of protons smash into billions of protons. Indeed, almost a billion times a second. And every time these packets collide, there are a couple of head-on collisions, proton on proton. And their combined energy, their kinetic energy, in this collision releases more energy. And this energy is converted into new small particles. And these new small particles, we know them already, they're completely normal quarks, protons and electrons. But there can be more exotic particles. For example, the forces that appear to have strong and weak interactions. Or it can be that the Higgs boson itself, which is everywhere around us, starts to oscillate. This vibration is also a particle. That has already been done, and it was the greatest success of 2012 to have found the last missing particle, the Higgs boson. Semiconductor is a very interesting collaboration. They've already had a lot of experience of working together with scientific partners. What induced me personally to choose them was the film Black Rain. Their method is to go through an archive and use the data that the scientists considered as uninteresting, insignificant or irrelevant, and to discover a wonderful aesthetic within it. And with this method, they find the beauty in waste, waste from a scientific point of view. That convinced me. I hope that they'll do the same at our place. There's a lot of rubbish that falls out if you're looking for something very rare. Most of the collisions produce what we call in technical language, crap. There's nothing interesting in it. It's only boring physics. But in the heart of this undergrowth, in this crap, in this part that everybody wants to throw away, diamonds are buried there.
This creature, whether it has a soul or not, or unless somebody proves otherwise, is inspired by the wish to find out where everything comes from. Life, the universe, and everything.
The search will go on, but it's a different quality of searching than in the past. In the past, one had a model that everyone wanted to complete, which of itself was very closed, where just one brick was missing to hold the arch up. What we have now is actually something that can see outside of this very perfect closed model. It's a journey into the unknown. In the past, we roughly knew what we were searching for and where we had to search. And that's why the Large Hadron Collider was designed the way it was, so that there was a greater possibility of finding the particle that everyone was hoping to discover. Nobody knows where the next particles are. Are they just around the corner? Are they a few miles away? That's a leap in the dark. We hope that we'll find something. There must be something out there, but we just don't know as yet. And the search will be much more difficult than before.
Although the species as yet does not know where it's coming from, it is asking itself, where is it going?
I think one has to be open to the unknown. One has to follow the flow of one's career to identify new questions, not because they are perhaps the ultimate questions that humanity will want to know, but because of a given topic is attractive, is interesting, because it's challenging, and because it poses a question that one would like to answer, but one would like to answer now. I cannot predict what questions I will have in 10, 20 years from now.
Colony dwellers are growing in number faster than ever before. It will be necessary to keep the species human under further close observation, as well as their cities. It is with a growing sense of certainty that we will soon be making studies of post-cities.
Der Ausgangspunkt für
The starting point for post-city were the living areas after all the changes and transformations that have happened to us. And I think a very important insight that one must always convey is that we don't simply have a flu here, which we hope will go away, as if we have the sniffles and we can lay down for a while, and then everything will be like it was before. It won't ever be like it was before. Whatever the changes are and whatever digital technology will bring, and no matter how great the geopolitical transformation processes are that we're currently experiencing, this is a case that a rather depressive voice could make. But when one sees such a festival, how hundreds of people from all over the world, artists, scientists, experts, activists, with unbelievable creativity, enthusiasm, as well as joy, work on the solutions to these problems, then we have no reason to be depressed, and it's completely clear that we humans are not ants, and never will be.
Dass wir Menschen keine Ameisen sind und nie sein werden.